Okay. Hello, everybody. This is the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association Solar Talks. And tonight it is a Detroit solar story that we're going to be highlighting. Some of you may have joined us before when we've introduced the solar neighborhood solar project that City of Detroit embarked on. I had to look it up. It was about 3 years ago that this whole journey started. And actually, to be to the place that we are right now, I'm going to say that's like lightning fast for the city of Detroit to move this quickly with this project. And thank goodness, because when it started, we didn't know 30% tax credits were not going to be something that was lasting longer than just the next few years for commercial solar projects. But here we are. We have a progress report, and it is amazing, the progress report that we're going to be giving to you. So for the next hour, we'll be talking with three folks who are deeply engaged with the project. I have Sarah Patton, who's with the Office of the Treasury of Detroit. And then we also have with DTE, who is the partner on two of the projects of the 5 projects. Terence Goveas and Brandon Francis will also be joining us to give their perspective on the DTE side of the project. So I'm going to share, and I always panic on the sharing thing, but just to give you a little perspective of where we started, how long ago. Is that visible? Is the image visible? Okay, so imagine 3 years ago. We had a different mayor. It was Mayor Duggan, was working pretty intensely on blight, but focusing on vacant properties that were the large-scale, highly visible projects, such as the vacant factories of Detroit. And one after another, year after year, every state of the city address would be another success story of another factory that was being renovated, or the train station, these big, wonderful projects. And it finally came down to, what are we doing about the neighborhoods? And so as time went on, I'm the chair of the Renewable Energy Committee in Detroit for City Council. We kept pushing solar. We just kept saying we've got to get solar into Detroit neighborhoods. And then finally, one day, we got the call. The mayor was interested in solar for neighborhoods, and how could this actually be implemented? So it was only going to be implemented if it went large scale, and the city wanted it for their own facilities as well. So it was going to be a twofer. And I'm not going to steal too much of Sarah's wonderful presentation, but I wanted to give you a little perspective of what we were starting with here in Detroit, but also the perspective from the neighborhoods themselves. And I was invited, along with my solar partner, to be part of the teams that would help the neighborhoods decide which neighborhoods would be selected. We want to make it very clear from the beginning that eminent domain was not used for any part of this project. And Sarah, I know you'll be reinforcing that as well. This was entirely neighborhood endorsed for each of the 5 neighborhoods. And they brought together teams of people to work with the neighborhoods to make sure that people understood exactly what they were asking for and how they would be involved. So Sarah will give us the full perspective of that. The one other thing that I want to add is that gaining the trust of the neighborhood was critical to making sure that these projects could happen. And I think that's why they were able to happen as quickly as they could, because the residents had a long history. We have a lot of senior citizens in these neighborhoods, had a long history of just feeling neglected by the city. And yes, you can see the train station, you can see all the wonderful big projects, but what about my neighborhood? And so the city had teams of people, and let me just quickly reference, there was the Department of Neighborhoods. There was staff from the Department of Neighborhoods on the ground every day in these neighborhoods talking to the residents. There was the Sustainability Office, and I think T might be joining us again, Tepfir, who has been a speaker on this project for us before. There was the Chief Strategy Officer, Tricia Stein, working with the mayor day after day. The Planning and Development Department was involved. And now we have Sarah, who's going to be presenting for us about her part of it and making sure that it is implemented. So she is going to share with us that. So Sarah, while you introduce yourself, I will get your part up on the screen.
Thank you, Diane. Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Patton. As Diane said, I am in the Office of Treasury. How I serve on this role is I'm the solar project manager. I was under Mayor Duggan previously, and I've shifted over to the Treasury, but I'm still functioning as the solar project manager for all 5 neighborhoods that we are implementing solar into. And I'll just wait. I'll just give Diane a second. But thank you. I really appreciate the background. It's a important story to tell where we were and to especially showing where we are. It's easy to forget that. Um,
Oh, see, I'm okay. Sorry.
no, it's all good.
I was almost there. There. Is this the right one? Yes. Okay. And now I just want to go to, okay. Is it showing?
No, not yet.
Oh. It's on my screen. Why isn't it on your screen? Okay. Share. Is it sharing?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I really only want it to be the big slide, but I'm going to leave it alone at that. Okay, tell me when you want it advanced.
Yeah, can we move to that first overview slide? Thank you. So this is just a quick overview of the entire project. So we took 165 acres of vacant, very blighted land across 5 disinfested neighborhoods. So it is 104 acres in phase 1 and 61 acres in phase 2. And we are transforming that currently into solar fields. The initiative would generate about 31 megawatts of renewable energy, which, as Diane mentioned, will be used to offset the municipal buildings the city has. It's going to be about 127 municipal buildings that are going to get offset. And there were 2 kind of big goals with this project, why we were doing it in such a big form, like not just doing like a few solar neighborhoods, but we wanted to really get to 31 megawatts because in 2017, our city council passed an ordinance that we needed to lower our greenhouse gas emissions. We had a goal by 2024 to lower it by 30%, and this project definitely gets us there. We're obviously a little bit past that, but once they are all online, it will get us there. We're going to continue to do renewable, just things across the city that's going to get us to that zero emissions by 2050 is our goal. And then we also wanted to shrink the city. There's a lot of just vacant, blighted land in the city, and there aren't really people there. It's a very sparse area. There's maybe a house every few blocks. Specifically in these neighborhoods, it's only a handful of people. Altogether, it was about 30, less than 35 homeowners who voluntarily moved. So you can imagine over 165 acres, only having 35 homeowners within those areas is very crazy. Like there was a house every block, if that. Okay, Diane, can you move to that map, please? Thank you. So this is a overview of where all these neighborhoods are landing across Detroit. So it's really fun to see it this way. The blue is phase 1 because we did this in 2 phases, and then the green is phase 2. So phase 1 happened in July 2023 or 2024, sorry. And then phase 2 happened January 2025. how this map reads is the blue/green areas are where the solar fields will actually be. The red boundary is the surrounding neighborhoods that actually received energy efficiency upgrades. So because the generation is going towards city buildings, we really needed a way to give back to the neighborhoods, the people who are going to be around the areas. So we, as part of the initiative, we did home energy efficiency upgrades to all the surrounding houses within that red boundary. They got between 15 and 25,000 per home to upgrade their house. And I'll go into detail a bit later on that. So during this process, we had to engage the community, we had to engage our local organizations, we had to really drive home what this project was doing, how we were going to go about it. And as Diane said, we had to gain the trust of the neighborhoods. So we had 21 organizations join us, NSP's Neighborhood Solar Partners, and that is where Diane comes in. She worked very closely with us on 2 neighborhoods. Of those 21, 10 of them were tier 1. So they just kind of helped us with messaging and getting out there. 5 of them were tier 2. So those were the partners more on hands-on with the neighborhood. You can see a few in the pictures here, but they came to meetings. We hosted 3 meetings per neighborhood, altogether 15. But we also had 75 community meetings outside of that because we had to message this, we had to do outreach. As Diane mentioned, we had the Dons on the streets, door knocking, talking to everyone almost on a daily basis. Yes, Miss Jennifer and then Megan is on the right there. These 2 played a huge role. They touched every single homeowner. They have their numbers, they called them consistently, they answered any question they had. Those 2 were our bridge between the city and the neighbors. And if you could just move on to the next slide, thank you. This is more snapshots of those community meetings. The neighborhoods had a huge part in designing the boundary around the solar fields. So this is them literally picking what they wanted. They picked fencing, they picked the buffer, so what trees are going to go in the area, what they wanted to see as the ground cover for the arrays. Thank you. And they voted. They all got together. Each neighborhood looks different because that neighborhood voted for what they wanted. And our planning and development team had a huge part in getting this together for us. So how it started, we did meeting 1 as like a huge overview of this is all the options you could possibly have. Why don't you vote and tell us what you're thinking of? Then meeting 2, we narrowed that down. Like, okay, as of the last meeting, you guys voted on these couple options. And then finally, meeting 3, we finalized. We had the neighborhoods actually sign off their neighborhood group. Usually the president or the chairs actually signed an agreement with the city and the developer and the neighborhood that we were going to do this. We were going to take their opinions. We were going to take the options they picked and actually implement it for all 5 arrays.
And everyone ate well too.
And everyone did eat well too. Yes, they were work time or after work time meetings, so we had made sure to have dinner. And this is an example of what the neighborhood in Van Dyke Lynch picked. So they wanted the decorative ring at the top. They wanted a ball cap on top of the fence. These are the specific trees they wanted. That's how detailed it got. They picked the exact trees they wanted to see and even the order they wanted to see it in. So this is what the neighbors pick in Van Dyke. And I only put 1 image in here because it gets a little repetitive, but each neighborhood picked their own variation of this. So they're all slightly different, but the idea is the same, that the same kind of fencing, but one may not have the decorative fence or they may not have a ball cap. So this is what Van Dyke looks like, and in a few months, towards the end of the summer, it's going to look a variation of this. It's not going to be full bloom like this because it's all going to be new plantings of trees and bushes, but give it a couple of years and it'll be full grown.
Yeah. One other thing that they were able to select, and this is something that will be coming up, not in this discussion, but we'll host another one when this project comes up. And that was what type of interior, what did they want to see inside the fence? Sarah, I hope it's okay that I butt in here. But what was important was the lesson learned from the first DTE installation in Detroit that was not a community engagement process. And then it just ended up being mowed grass, more or less. And the residents just felt isolated from that site. And like this giant thing was put in the middle of their neighborhood. And what do we do? And so it was really critical that the neighbors had a voice in what they wanted to look at. Um, and so in the Van Dyke Lynch neighborhood, um, which will be called a different name shortly by DTE, but in this neighborhood, they wanted a meadow inside. So they had options. Do you want gravel? Do you want just mowed lawn? Do you want agrivoltaics? We did one of our solar talks last year on the agrivoltaics. This neighborhood really just wanted the meadow and they liked the look of the wildflowers and whatnot. Recognizing that that meadow doesn't look like that year round. So there will be border plantings as well around the edges.
Thank you. Yeah, I do just want to stress that we learned a lot of lessons from O'Shea Solar Park. While the residents did receive some like home upgrades, it wasn't nearly the way we touched them for these five neighborhoods. We made sure that it was community driven in these neighborhoods, which is why they had so much of a say in what it looked like. And then they also had these energy efficiency upgrades, which I mentioned earlier. It's 15 to 25,000. Each neighborhood has an allocated amount. How it was determined was depending on how big the array in that neighborhood was, plus how many homeowners. It was just like a formula of how much. Thank you. As you can see, for Van Dyke, this is about 40 acres. Um, and I
All
think
the residents in the pink
yeah,
area. Yeah.
65 surrounding homeowners. So that neighborhood specifically received 15,000 of upgrades. And the process we did was we initially did a pre-screening with them. It was just a phone call to get their information, see what their concerns in that house was, collect just data we needed. We needed to make sure they were owner occupied because that was a huge thing. No landlords were going to get these benefits. It was you had to own and occupy your house. You had to have lived in it by December 2023 and that's all you need to qualify. You just had to live in the house. We then did an inspection of the house. The developers had their subcontractors go out. It was about a 3-hour inspection where they looked at every corner of the house and then provided a report of where they think that homeowner can see energy efficiencies. And of course, any health and safety measures that may have been concerning. So this is just a list of their options. However, it really is homeowner driven. So that homeowner got a heavy say in what they received, but they could have gotten windows, roof repairs or replacements, solar panels, which I will show you. We did have one resident with their house was solar ready, so they were able to get panels, appliances, furnace, AC, hot water heaters, CO detectors. So anything that was going to make the house more comfortable to live in, and then obviously save on their lessen their energy burden. We coupled this amazingly. DTE was a great partner with DTE's EEA program. So above the 15 to 25,000, the homeowners also received EEA, and that was just whatever additional benefit DTE could provide. This is a snapshot of where we were about a week ago. So as you can see, we have 209 total homeowners. That's the breakdown of what each neighborhood received. So Gratiot Finley, about 17,000. State Fair and Greenfield Park is 25. And then Van Dyke and Houston Whittier is 15,000 each. So each home received that dollar amount. But like I said, in addition to that, they also received EEA dollars. As of last week, we've actually completed about 100 homes. I think it's a few more as of today, but that very last column, you'll see that's how many homes are completed of the 209. About 85 are kind of in progress right now. The homeowner has either signed off on what scope of work they want, so what upgrades they're receiving, or they are actively in construction. And then the remainder is just we're just collecting final paperwork and getting on their schedules for when we can do their home assessment. So pretty soon, this is going to be a completed list, and all these homes would have seen great upgrades in their house. We've seen so many new roofs, we've seen so many new furnaces and ACs. We've gotten a lot of testaments of how their house is now so much more comfortable to live in. We had one instance of a resident who received a CO detector. And there's actually an article out there if you want to look it up. But a few days after she received it, it started going off. And the fire department came to inspect the house. They told her, had she gone to sleep that night, her and the kids in the house may not have woken up that day. And if it wasn't for that CO detector getting put into the house, who knows how that story would have ended. But gladly they did get out and they were able to fix that problem. So that's just one of many stories we've heard that we are so happy to have been able to make that difference in their lives.
This is fascinating here.
Yes, this is a great. I love seeing this slide. So we took that 209 homeowners and we wanted to just run some demographics on them. Like, who are these homeowners that we are giving upgrades to? Well, 69% of them are 55 years or older. It says seniors because that is what the city classifies a senior as, but I have many people rather see the 65 and older instead of 55 and older. But yeah, so this is an older population with skipping ahead, but not as many kids. It's 24% children. But what is crazy is the income level. Most 90% of them are under 50,000. 23 either reported no income or unemployed. And it really just goes to show you without the program, the very much needed upgrades in these houses, they could not have done it. They could not have done it themselves. So we are happy to have provided the new roofs, the new windows, anything that made their house more comfortable. And then to the far right there, you'll see 40% of these homeowners reported having a disability. So they were not able to accomplish that, even doing it themselves if they were to take on any home projects. So really, this was a very disinvested area. They they didn't get they were overlooked by the city, unfortunately, for so many years. So we are now paying very close attention to the neighborhoods. These five are just the start, but the new mayor, Mary Sheffield, is her huge plan is to really focus on the neighborhoods.
And I think, Sarah, one thing I learned from the very beginning was that the neighborhoods, when the city put out the call of, do you want solar fields in your neighborhood? Um, the neighborhoods that had really active block clubs and organized, and they weren't the vacant neighborhoods.
Right.
And so it went hand in hand that the disinvested neighborhoods did not have strong block clubs, did not have a social structure. Maybe a church, Van Dyke Lynch had a church that really was the one meeting place for everybody. But it really was a lot of people who got left behind and didn't know how to get out. And now, through this really active engagement with the city and Department of Neighborhoods, and they now know how to pick up the phone and report immediately any kind of issues, or they know that their garbage is going to get picked up. They just have such a better feeling about their own neighborhoods now. Really strong outcome.
Actually, to that point, Diane, we had one neighborhood through this process who originally didn't even have a block club to have signed up with the city. It was actually just a single homeowner saying, "Hey, I want my neighborhood," and our Department of Neighborhoods helped them create a block club in order to be able to participate in programs like this that call for, "Oh, we'll go through your block club. They're the ones who are going to get your neighborhood." Well, now they have it. They didn't
Yeah,
before. Now they
yeah,
do. So,
now they
but
do.
it
Yeah,
really just goes to show it just takes one person to call out, and I'm happy we listened.
yeah. And remember, everyone, Detroit is a city that's 140 square miles. So it's not like the city was intentionally ignoring everybody. It's that in a city of that size, it's hard to manage these neighborhoods that we're becoming disinvested in.
It's a lot of ground to cover.
Yes.
So this is showing, if you remember in the slide, two slides ago, I said there were about 100 homes finished. This is showing what those 100 homes received. About every 7 in 10 homes received a hot water tank. So we were especially happy given how cold this winter has been that between hot water tank and furnaces, we were able to heat these homes. Over half of the homeowners received insulation or some form of health and safety, which could have been mold, asbestos remediation, sewer pipelinings. So we did, while our focus was energy efficiency upgrades, we could not turn our backs to something as important as asbestos remediation. We needed to make sure this was a livable space. Half the homeowners received electrical work, which is really important for the future if they do want to pursue any solar panels or just any high efficiency appliances. Every 4 in 10 homes received a new roof, and then about a third of the homes received new windows. Of course, these homes received multiple measures, but this is just a breakdown of how each measure per the house looked.
That's a lot of investment.
Mm-hmm. And this is what I mentioned earlier. We had this rooftop solar go up March 20th. Terrence, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's powered up and running already. So this was exciting. This is what our first rooftop solar for the program. And I know this homeowner is really ecstatic to have this. It's obviously behind the meter, so it's a direct offset to their bills. They're going to use this to power their home.
That's awesome. They're the star of the neighborhood.
They are the star right now.
Wow. Isn't this something? I'm going to blow up the befores.
Yes. That was a great photo you showed before. These are just additional of what this land looked like. It was just nothing. There was dumping on it. It was overgrown. This is a sidewalk view of what you would see walking by. So this was before we purchased the land. These were the neighborhoods looking like. Then there was a during when of us clearing the land. The city at this point bought the homes, demolished them, and DT started clearing the land. That third column there is what it looked like as of last week. So it's coming along fantastically. You see panels in the ground. Pretty soon you're going to see that meadow that is pictured on the very right hand side. But
just to get a scale, okay? Here's 2 guys, right?
yes.
And then here's a house over here, right? So
Mhm.
this extends for several city blocks both ways. And Terrence and Brandon are going to be bringing us up to speed on that. And then here we are with the meadows eventually.
Yes, and again, that's what
Yeah, yeah. I think we're going to talk to them about how to group the red buds together and, make groupings, but we'll get there. And then a beautiful site. Lastly,
yes. One additional piece we end up finding some money for that's really exciting is neighborhood signage. So there's going to actually be 2 signs. The first sign being so Van Dyke, for instance, DT refers to as Castle Park, but it's going to be a solar neighborhood sign saying, hey, this is a solar neighborhood, and it's going to say the neighborhood name, so Van Dyke, for instance. And then we're also going to have an educational sign on what solar is, what this is looking like, and just explaining as people are walking on the sidewalk, what they're looking at through the fence. So we're really excited. That middle picture, I know I wish there was a better pixelation on it, but that middle picture is actually where Van Dyke specifically will be located. And again, this was heavily neighborhood driven. This is where the neighbors in Van Dyke voted for these signs to go. So it's going to be off of Leander and Lightford, right in the middle there. And again, just right off the sidewalk. So anyone walking by can stop and see the sign. They can read the educational piece. And we're hoping the city's going to be putting these in now that the weather's a little bit better, we should be putting it in soon. And then the other neighborhoods still have to kind of vote on where they would like the placement, but once they do that, the signs in the other neighborhoods will go in shortly. That is
Awesome.
all I have to present. It's a lot of
Okay,
information,
a
so
lot of
feel free to
information.
ask questions towards the end.
Yeah, let's see, stop for a moment and see if there's any questions for Sarah directly now. Um, Before we move on to the
I
DTE
have a
technical
question.
part.
I
I
have a,
have, hold on, I've got John Freeman's hand is up. Oh, wait, go ahead, Marcia. Go ahead.
oh, thank you. That was fascinating, but I have a lot of questions about how this is being financed. I don't know and who owns the solar panels, what organization, that sort of thing. I didn't, if you said what it was, I missed it. I'm sorry.
I didn't, that's a great question. I did not go into that much detail. So how this is working is the city owns the land and the developers are leasing that land from us. So they actually own the solar panels. How it's being financed is the
Who
city,
are the developers? Who are the developers?
right now it is DTE and Lightstar Renewables.
Okay.
They were
Uh,
selected through an RFP process. The city put out an RFP 2 years ago to developers, solar developers nationwide, to select a solar developer who could come up with a financial structure on how to best make this work. And they suggested it, the city said, give us your best ideas. We're willing to lease, we're willing to outright purchase. You tell us what will work best. Sorry, Sarah, I'm going to just go through this quickly. Um, the city did select DTE and another company out of Boston, I believe, Lightstar, that's doing the agrivoltaics. DTE is the first out of the gate. They will own it for 35 years. They are leasing the land from the city, and the city will pay for the electricity that is produced. The electricity all goes straight to the grid, but Detroit receives the renewable energy credits. So they will be getting a bonus back. The city gets a bonus back. And what this replaces is all the electricity. It's not directly replacing, but this is to offset the electricity that the city uses in their city buildings. And because they get the renewable energy credits, it goes toward the city's goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. But the city will pay for the electrons.
And
So
who,
How
DTE is
much are
the
they
developer.
paying?
who's, oh, excuse me.
Um, I don't have that number in front of me. It's higher than the standard rate, but it's because all of these community benefits had to go in place. So there is quite a bit of, so the city is paying, but they're getting the rebate back. And we went through this whole thing in one of the previous sessions we did. One of the benefits to the city, they ended up with, I believe, $7 million in savings over the next 35 years because of the reduction in greenhouse gases, because of um, we no longer, as a city, have to maintain the roads and fire and everything for these 5 districts. Water, there was quite a few community benefits back to the city as well as to the residents.
Mhm.
So economically, it's a wash. And the city gets the renewable energy credits to go toward the greenhouse gas emissions as well.
Okay, and the money that went to assist low-income houses being made more
That's
efficient,
part of the program
that is,
that,
that is part of the payment by
yeah.
DTE as well.
So DTE gets the payment for the electricity, but they had to extend that back to the neighborhoods. That's why there was the formula of 15,000 or how many
Well,
per neighborhood.
congratulations. That sounds really
It was
fascinating.
very innovative, I'll tell you that much. A few more questions and then we'll go on to the next one. Ed?
Yeah, I was curious to know how you're managing to, or who's subcontracting all of the energy efficiency work and quite a bit of the work that I've been involved with in this. Sometimes having the certified contractors, available contractors, qualified workforce, all that's pretty challenging. So who is actually doing all of that good work? And my follow-up question would be with things like I saw furnaces and hot water tanks. Are any of those heat pump technologies that would kind of lower the carbon footprint of these homes as they're being upgraded?
Yeah, so we had three subcontractors. We had Walker Miller Energy, Seal, and Elevate, and then each of those subcontractors had their pool of contractors who actually did the physical work on the house. So each neighborhood had their own. So Walker Miller did Van Dyke Lynch, Seal did Greenfield Park, and Elevate did the other neighborhoods. So from there, they had each contractor go in doing the roofs, doing the windows. Just a general contractor that was per house. I I'm not an expert, so I can't answer the heat pump technology. I apologize. Terrence, I don't know. Do you know if any of the furnaces or hot water tanks had heat pump technology? For sure, the
Yeah,
thermal.
I cannot confirm for sure. Yeah, I was not too involved in those details.
Yeah, that would have been a nice thing to include, but because, as far as I understand, because the houses could not be, there was limits to the budget. And for a heat pump to work the most efficiently, the level of insulation that would have been required, and they just weren't buttoned up that much that a heat pump would have been as efficient as you would have liked. And then they'll, I think they did try to use them in a number of houses, yes. But part of the concern is also that then your electric bill goes up. So anyway, there were two sides. Just if really quick questions, because we want to get to the DTE part, which is really challenging, right? So Abraham,
I
what
just
have you
wondered,
got?
I just wondered what the average homeowner sees in terms of billing. Are they roughly at the same level where they were before, or lower, or?
Do we
Actually,
know that yet, Sarah?
we just this last week connected usage data. We're seeing about a 25% reduction of electricity usage. A lot of that's due to just insulation alone. We were able to seal up these homes, and we got that data. We had originally their 1 year data before they did any upgrades, and then working with DTE, we actually received their new month's data. And then self-reported from the residents, we've gotten about $35 less a month that they're paying.
Okay.
We had one homeowner who had her entire crawl space was not insulated. It was basically a giant hole in her house. She was paying about $400 a month because all that heat and AC was escaping, winter and summer. We insulated the entire thing. She's now down to about 200 a month. So she's a very unique case. That's not going to happen with anyone else. But that was great that she reported that to us.
Yeah. Okay,
I've-
Dave?
Sorry.
Oops, sorry. Abraham, did you have
Yeah,
something
just
else?
one more question. What is a disinvested neighborhood? I don't know what that means.
Yeah, so it's just neighborhoods that the city did not put funds into for so long, or just doing organizations through them. It's the literal meaning of they did not receive investments throughout the years.
Yeah. And socially disinvested too. The people just became, when we were meeting with them in the beginning, some of the sweet little old ladies, and I mean, 80 plus, were coming to these meetings saying, I'm afraid to leave my house. So, they just had become isolated, is another way to put it. And yeah. Okay, Dave, real quick.
What's the size of these arrays? And they
Oh,
must
we'll
have
get there.
a substation and stuff like that. How'd you make those look pretty?
Okay, we're going to get to DTE right now as soon as I put on my share screen. I know there's a way to do this better with show meeting. No, I don't want to do that. I want to get rid of this thing. I know there's a way to do that. Okay, we're going to go there to the beginning. So we have two
this
guys
works.
who've been, as I said, with this project, going back to meeting with the neighborhoods. So we have Terence and Brandon who will be talking. This is still the same neighborhood. We've been calling Van Dyke Lynch. They also are known as Castle Solar Park. So Terence, Dave?
Yeah, I can take it over. Yeah.
Okay. Can you
Thank you,
see my
Diane. Yeah.
screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay,
Perfect.
good.
Yeah, we can move on to the next slide, really. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. First of all, yeah, thank you for the opportunity to present the design and developmental aspects of this uni project within the city of Detroit limits. As Dan mentioned, my name is Terence Goveas. I am the project manager with DTE. I'm with the Renewables development team. So I was involved in the design side of things here. And after my portion is done, I'll be handing over to Brandon, who will be talking about the construction aspects of the project. So Castle Solar Park, again, I'll address that quickly. You know, DTE has a way of naming our infrastructure. There was a desire to call this Van Dyke Lynch, but within our infrastructure, there is a substation called Van Dyke, and we have also a substation called a Lynch. So we couldn't use either of those names or a combination, because if we have an issue at either of those sites, we didn't want our emergency teams get sent to the wrong site. Hence, we chose Castle Solar Park. Castle is one of the streets that runs along the west side of the project boundary. Anyways, so that being out of the way, Castle Solar Park is a good use case to highlight the aspects that make urban solar development fundamentally different from greenfield development. The theme of this deck is quite simple here. In a city environment, you're not just designing a solar array that puts out electrons. You're designing around existing infrastructure and active neighbors, multiple agencies, and real-world construction constraint. So the roadmap here for this particular evening today here, I'll cover first, the existing infrastructure, what stayed, what had to be removed, and what had to be relocated, and how that ties into the technology selection. Then we'll talk about stormwater challenges and how that ties directly into foundation design and the requirements of the stormwater ordinance that drive these decisions. Finally, we'll cover approvals and permitting from FAA and other organizations, and maybe also quickly talk about road closures, traffic signage, neighborhood agreements, and beautification, things like that. So we can go to the next slide. Yeah, thank you, Dan. So in an urban site, compared to a greenfield development, the first big difference is that the project area is surrounded by and often interwoven with the existing features and community uses. The image that you see here on the right-hand side is the project location. The black line shows the project boundary. To the east of the site is an airport. I should have thought about that before. And on the west side, you will see that main street is Van Dyke Lynch. And yeah, what Diane was pointing out earlier just now is Castle Avenue. So the yellow dots there represent the houses that stayed, right in the vicinity. There are other houses in addition to those houses there that are, beyond Castle or just north of Dubé. There were no houses on the east side, Gilbo, that partner or that are next to the airport there. So the first thing we did was, look at the infrastructure and figure out what remains. Obviously, we decided that the roads had to remain. In addition to the homes, the stormwater and sewer infrastructure had to remain. The water lines and fire hydrants had to remain. Now, per our contract with the city, we were allowed, inside the fence, we were allowed to build on top of the streets. They just had to be ballasted. So in case maintenance was required, then we would be able to dismantle the system and do the required maintenance. But we decided against that because when you look at the long-term feasibility, dismantling an operational power plant does not really work out quite well. So the red lines that you see within the maps are essentially these stormwater lines and roads that we decided to stay out of.
And Terence, it should be pointed out quickly that DTE has a 35-year lease. And
Correct.
so it could be that in 35 years, this neighborhood is hopping and it could be a housing development that happens at some point, or there could be another use. So the city, and to save costs, chose not to
Absolutely.
have that amount of infrastructure removed. Okay.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Diane. Yes. So yeah, we decided that all of these infrastructure would stay in place. Then we had to look at what would be removed. The overhead lines and poles. If you can go back to the previous slide, yeah, I'll quickly cover that. Overhead lines and poles. And some of these poles had, communication equipment from either AT&T or Comcast connected to them. And just because, the solar layout and the long-term operations couldn't coexist in case of a storm and things like that, there is a high risk that our panels are damaged. So we decided those need to go away. And some overhead lines were relocated to the boundary because, you still have to power that one home on Gilboa Avenue. So some of the power lines were put along the perimeter there on the north and the east side, sorry.
And I believe these houses chose to stay. They could have
Correct.
sold and
Yes, so
received the
the yellow
benefit of
dots are
moving.
the houses that decided to stay, correct. So we had to, we would have liked to have a straight line fence there, but we had to build around that. So yeah, once you understand what the fixed constraints are, what you can't move, what you must move, and what you must protect, then you go on to the next big driver, which was the water and the stormwater challenges. So stormwater, it directly influences the foundation design and the overall civil layout. For all practical purposes, a solar array is technically considered impervious surface because, water just runs off and there is a gap between the modules. So, any rainwater can percolate directly to the ground. We had decided to go with a ballasted system and while going through our designs, when we look at the stormwater ordinance, we realized the amount of concrete blocks that we were having was the total area was beyond what the stormwater ordinance would allow for without implementing any mitigation measures. So the stormwater ordinance is written in such a way that if you exceed a certain acreage limit of concrete, then you have to implement certain measures. So one of the options was to implement a detention pond. And as you can see on the screen there, the blue rectangle was the size of the detention pond that would be required for about 40 acres worth of developed area. That would mean we would lose capacity, generation capacity, and it would also mean additional civil work. We really didn't want to disturb too much of the land around there, and it would have also meant additional costs too. So on a compared to a greenfield project, when you work within the city limits, you don't really get the economies of scale. So taking all that into account, we decided to move away from the ballasted foundations and instead went to a pile-driven foundation. So yeah, the next slide here. So once the civil concept is workable, the next set of constraints really come from, approvals, safety, access, and operating within the city limits, right? And it so happened here we have a airport right next to the project site. So once we developed the initial design, we coordinated with the airport development team. A glint and glare study was performed. So this study incorporates, technical details from the design, like the type of panels, the angles, the orientation, things like that. And the glint and glare study also looks at, the flight glide path and the air traffic control location. So in this case, it turned out that there was a slight impact to the air traffic control tower. So what we did was, so what we did was, based on the report that we found, that the top 1/3 really was the problem area. So we had to move change the orientation of those panels to face southwest. the most of the panels here are facing southeast, so just the northern side of those we had to change it to southwest to mitigate those glare concerns. So once that was figured out, we went to the PPR, preliminary plan review with the city, and also got additional feedback from all of the departments. The fire department, they gave us input into where the gate locations should be, and in case of an emergency response. And then to add to that, we had to, the city departments developed, the road closure maps and traffic signage that have to go with it. Because what we were doing, even though this was in a corner, we were essentially creating, dead ends at certain places, or we had to have rerouted traffic. So there were detour signs that needed to be placed along the project boundary. And, Google Maps had to be updated, essential services for, emergency response or trash pickup, things like that. Those had to be developed as well. So we worked hand in hand with the city there to go through this. Now, we can
Not
go
an
to
easy
the
task.
next slide.
Yes.
Yep, yeah, but yeah, I would say, yeah, we had a great time working with the city. Everybody was helpful, giving us useful suggestions on how to do things. So it was an iterative process, and it was a pleasure working with all the departments there. So after you clear all these approvals, access requirements, the main layer really is the community expectations, which is what you see here, and you've probably seen this slide for the third time now. But this essentially captures the good neighbor requirements under beautification, right? In urban solar, aesthetics can be a core requirement. It's not just a nice to have, because the project exists in daily view of the residents here, right? And that's what Diane and Sarah pointed out earlier about O'Shea. So they are looking at this site every morning as they wake up, and every evening before they go to bed. So we really worked with these communities here to understand what their requirements were, and what the processes or what their expectations were. And it was pointed out earlier, they chose the type of fence with the ball top post caps and O-rings, and the type of trees. On the right hand side, the image is essentially a rendering, the visual. It just reinforces the intent. The plantings are all planned. There is a mix of, they wanted a meadow, a manicured meadow. So these seed mixes have different, Golden Alexander, Black-eyed Susan, Mountain Mint, and what have you. So essentially that was one of the key requirements. So with that, I will hand it over to Brandon, and he can walk you over through, the construction challenges.
Yes.
Thank you, Terence.
Yeah, thanks, Terence. Great job. So my name's Brandon Francis. I'm the project manager for the construction aspect of this. So once we get through design, Terence sort of hands it off to me, and we take it from there. So we did begin construction in January with a lot of our pile installation. We actually started before that with tree clearing. But once we cleared a lot of this area, there was a lot of debris
That's
left
tires,
over. Yes.
right? Oh my gosh.
That is. So there was quite a bit. There was concrete, there was asphalt, there was trash, lots of tires and things like that. So
these are piles of stuff that got
yeah,
assembled. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So
Sort of.
cleaning the site was a pretty large task. But yep, we were ultimately able to clean it all up and move on from that. So and then the next slide. So some of the construction challenges, some of the things we're working through. So we did have a transportation plan to limit disturbance to the residents that chose to remain, and the folks in the vicinity around the project. So we had this green line here, which is, I think that is, yep, Lynch Road. So we had folks come up and around French Road, and then come through some of these side streets here on the northeast side of the project to come into the job, especially all of our trucking that is bringing in all of the glass modules, the solar panels, So they're following those routes to limit disturbance. Yep. And then let's see, what else did we
Was
have?
this your staging area here?
No, that is a Stellantis
Oh,
plant.
Stellantis, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Then
So
here you see the airport runway.
yeah, absolutely. And then it also is sort of forms an L shape and comes down and goes east and west, just south of French Road or Lynch Road there.
So this
And
is Lynch Road. This is the
the
southern boundary.
so
Or
that is Lyford Avenue. So that is on the, if you look at the project above it, that is the first road on the south part of the job.
Okay,
Yep.
here.
So yeah, right there. And so this picture shows that we had those two residents there that remained. And so we have some construction barricades and things like that to make the project safe. So we actually um, cordoned off this area so that the folks could still get through. And so our contractors were great in helping us make that a safe space for the residents to travel. And the city was helpful in communicating to the residents and really working through that. Um,
Are
so the
those two are going to stay? Or do you think they'll eventually move? Or you don't know?
I think Sarah could speak to that more, but I believe they're in the works of actively moving out because we do have a fence that goes right across the road there now. So now they
Yeah,
cannot, yeah, go that way.
yeah. Okay.
Yep. And then as far as some additional challenges, so the overhead line extension. So what that is at Van Dyke and Lynch, we have our existing 24 kV subtransmission line that runs east and west. And we need to bring those power lines to the site so that we can tie into the plant. And so all the energy that we generate is going to go onto those lines and go out to the grid. So we actually do not have a substation per se. We have inverters and we have transformers and lots of equipment. We have some equipment pads, but we're putting the load onto the existing 24 kV system. So part of that requires three different permits. So we need an MDOT permit on Van Dyke, we need a City of Detroit permit with the city, and we need an FAA. Not sure if it's a permit so much, but we have to submit paperwork to them showing what we want to do because we are penetrating that airspace within, I believe it's 10 or 20,000 feet of the airport. And also MDOT has an aeronautical division that's looking at for the 80 and 85 foot steel power lines that we need to put in this area. So that's something we are actively working through because ultimately we need to get this line built to the site and energized so we can backfeed and test a lot of our equipment. So we're actually coordinating with that Stellantis plant when we do an outage to tie into that line and things like that, which has tight timelines. And so there's sort of a project in and of itself working with our distribution operations folks here at DTE. I believe those were really the main challenges we've had from a construction standpoint. Construction overall is moving really well on this project. And yeah, we plan to be mechanically complete here in the next couple of months. So things are going pretty well.
And again, that's why I'm saying it's so amazing how quickly this project is going because of the challenges that were totally not unforeseen, but just, when you see the picture of, oh yeah, all the solar panels, but then you realize, no, there were houses there and there were basements under those houses, and there's just so many complications because of the urban site. So you'll be definitely writing the book on how to do urban infill solar installations for the future, and especially at the 40 acre uh, mass, because it's huge for inside a city. Thank you, guys. Okay, we are at 8 o'clock, so I do understand if people have to leave, but is it okay if we take a few questions still? I think, Abraham, go ahead.
I wonder how you're doing monitoring and security of the whole installation. And the next one is, I'm very curious if you have show and tell tours, and especially advocacy of the neighbors who participated in this, because I think they may become your strongest advocates
Absolutely.
throughout that, what is it, 140 square mile area, and
Well,
perhaps well beyond the state.
And there will be 5 of these, right, eventually. So I do believe we will become ecotourism capital of America for solar and
I hope it.
solar parks. We do have a tour scheduled with the City of Detroit's Renewable Energy Committee for June 11th. So if anyone's interested in that, I'll see if we can put that in our GLREA weekly notes for June 11th. And this team will be on site, and it'll be a great opportunity for people to see how this is going. Security, the fence, I believe, is the security, but Terence, Brandon, what
I can
others?
I can
Okay.
speak a little bit about security during construction. So we do have a camera out on site. DTE does, but this is really just for monitoring of construction, and we're kind of creating like a time lapse video and things like that that we will eventually share here once the project's complete. But our contractor, in this case, Motor City Electric, for this site is in charge of their site security. And so they do have security that is there basically whenever they're not doing construction. So overnight, they have a security guard that traverses the site and just ensures it's safe. And then we also have gates that are locked. So access to the site is essentially closed down once they leave for the day.
I just wondered long term how these sites are going to be monitored and measured, and whether or not you would have company-wide or statewide monitoring services that can basically are the monitoring brain of these systems. So you have 24/7 systems like you have in other large global computing sites, for example.
Yes, so that would be all of our SCADA equipment. So we do have a lot of electronic, servers and things like that that is connected. We're actually working through finalizing design. How do we want to connect this? Are we using a fiber line? Are we using Starlink? There's various different ways we can do that. So we have a lot of smart equipment that is essentially monitoring the voltages of the inverters, all sorts of stuff. And then that goes back to our headquarters. And so we can monitor a lot of that remotely. And then as far as site security, I mean, we will have a badge access sliding motorized gate. And then we'll also have a bunch of other gates that are accessible mostly for like the fire department and if we need to access the site from a different area. But there is physical security at the site, so it will be locked.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'm just going to switch over to the chat quickly because there were a few questions there. Thank you, Phil, for including a bit about how the program was heavily supported by the federal tax credits, which is true. DTE is the beneficiary of that, the tax credit, so that's what helped brings a large part of the cost down. And then T, who is with us, but and just listening in, she said we tried to braid with MI hers, but could not make it work. I don't know if she wants to give more details on that, if she's still available. I know she's traveling. Dave wanted to know, will the slides be shared? Maybe John can give you more information on how these are all recorded and will be available on our YouTube station. And so through Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association YouTube, you're able to access any of the many talks that we've had at this point. There's also a question about how do you make it happen in Ypsilanti. Believe me, this was not an easy project to get started, and the minimum 40 acres to make it work, I think, was pretty important as well. But that's a conversation you need to have with DTE, and you have to be willing to pay for it. So Detroit is paying a premium to have this work. for the electricity, right? It's not, it's something that the commitment of, are we going to be a leader in solar? Are we going to show the way? I mean, we had many conversations about this, and especially with City Council, which makes me so proud of our city for taking these steps to make sure that this was going to happen. So I will leave that. Dave, you have a quick question?
I have something.
I do. I just wonder, with the change of the mayor in Detroit, that the project be protected?
Absolutely. Sarah, do you want to address that? She came as a speaker to our Green Task Force breakfast and said loud and clear she is in all support for all sustainable actions that have been started. But go ahead, Sarah.
Yes, as I'm sure most of you all know, the mayor was previously our city council president. So she was actually well a part of passing, while she was on city council, these projects to begin with. She voted for it. So they will be protected. They are also contracted projects. So as it was mentioned before, DTE has a 35-year contract with the city. That's all been signed for months now. Both for phase one was July 24, and then phase two was January 25. So it's a city project. They have contracts, and like I mentioned, the mayor was on city council at the time these projects were brought up. So they're full force and happening.
No clawing back in Detroit, boy.
No
We
clawing
make a commitment, we keep it.
Yeah.
Yes.
No Trump in charge, huh?
I wasn't going to say it.
I am.
No, we're very, very proud of the city, like I said. So we
Excellent.
have run way over our time. And no, it was not a purple project, so we're good with that. Thank you all. Again, we'll post in the weekly or monthly GLREA newsletter about that tour so people can attend if they're interested, and get that sneak peek in. But it is something we're terribly proud of. So thank you for joining us. Thank you again to our panel, Sarah, Terence, and Brandon. T, I know you were there. Julie Joswiak was also a big part of this with the community liaison at DTE, but she had a previous commitment, so could not attend. But we're just so proud and so amazed that this could happen. So, well, thank you, everyone, and have a good evening.